Hello, Fox fans. I hope this is working. The stream still might be setting up, so I'll just give it a minute. If you can see me, if you can hear me, if you're in the chat, please say hello. I'm just checking the Discorders. Hopefully the notification's gone out, you never know. Should be there. Anybody in the chat tonight? There you go. I think it was just taking a couple of minutes to set up. So yeah, hopefully the notification's gone out and it's not just you guys from Discord that have popped over. But lovely to see you in the chat, Logan and Peter. How are you doing? You were saying you're in hospital, Peter. What is going on? Like I said, hope it's nothing too serious. Can't be dealing with that. Hiya, Carla. How are you doing? How are you today? This is a very late one for me. It is 3:30 a.m. here in Stockholm. Did want to stream a little bit earlier, I'm not going to lie. I had planned to do a semi-spontaneous late stream. Hey up, Brad. What's that doing in the stream, cocker? I've not seen you for a while. I did get back to your message on Patreon a couple of days ago, so I hope you got that. And you were saying that you were still lurking, even if you were not able to chat so much, and that you'd missed the last couple of streams. But very nice to see you. And Georgie's popped in as well. Double Carter action. Thanks for that, Logan. I'm glad there was a notification. That's great. Yeah, it has been a very long time, Georgie. I've missed your name in the stream. For those of you hanging out here as well, not familiar with Brad and Georgie, Logan, you certainly will be. Carla, I think you will be too. Peter, I'm not sure, but some of the oldest Fox fans, not in age, just in time that you've been following me, and you were there, I think, for all of the original book clubs last spring. If not all of them, you must have been there for nearly all of them. And like Shannon and often Logan and a bunch of others, often were there for the whole long haul as well, like tuning in right from the start, and then even if the stream was like 4, 5, 6 hours, you were still there. So lovely to have you here, of course. Sorry to hear your stomach's troubling you, Carla. I hope that clears up, but some reading might take your mind off things a little bit as well. Logan's saying things are a little bit choppy. Are you meaning with the connection? I'm hoping this internet here, this is my new apartment. There's always a new apartment, but this is my newest apartment. Literally just been here since 2 Saturdays ago. Oh, right. Why is it the mic that's popping? Could be the connection. Could be the mic. I can drop it down a little bit. I'll just ask how it is for others. Don't know if it's just because I've got other inputs muted. Maybe if I cleared those out, it'd be a little bit better. But I think this is normally how I do it. But audio is crackly. That's annoying. But yeah, it shouldn't be too high. I can try reducing it on the amp just a little bit. Just a sec. Oh gosh, Peter. That's horrible to hear. I don't know what to say. Well, but all the best, really. I hope you're doing as well as you possibly can be. But yeah, and thank you. You're an amazing supporter as well, Peter. Absolutely wonderful. Let me try and fix this audio. I don't really know what's the problem. I was just saying, I've got a new setup. I'm using the same streaming software, but I've got it properly set up for YouTube. Last time it was set up kind of optimized for Twitch. This now should be, this should be optimized for YouTube. Spent a strangely long time just setting this stuff up on the screen, and I thought everything was okay. I will do, Peter, don't you worry. Yeah, let me just... yeah, I'll just reduce it slightly on the amp, but it shouldn't be the reason. I wonder if something's just... I wonder if this is loose. No. Has this made any difference? Just a sec. Don't know if that's made any difference at all. Almost like interference from another device. So strange. It can't be my phone or anything like that. I mean, it's the first time I've streamed here. In this new place. Keep me in the loop if it sounds any better. I can drop this a little bit more as well. Might be worse now. Don't be telling me that, Logan. Don't be telling me that. That is confusing. Let's see. Sorry if this wobbles the screen around a little bit. The webcam is attached to the top of the laptop, which is not optimum, but let's get rid of that. I'll just try deactivating and then reactivating this 1 second. I don't think that should make any difference. Thanks, Carla. I'm glad you think the lighting's a bit better. Brad's saying better sound. George is saying it's like crackling on the beginning of a record, which is kind of a nice effect, really. Don't know what you're complaining about. I'm joking. How is it sounding now? Is there any difference at all? It's fixed. I fixed it. Gosh, I didn't think I was capable of fixing things. So it's actually better. Are you just saying that so that I stop worrying about it? Or is it actually fixed? Oh, good. All right, okay. So maybe it was the webcam interfering for some reason. Is it too quiet now, or is the volume okay as well? I reduced it a little bit, but it still looks okay from what I can see. All better. Hello, Narida. Always nice to see people dropping into the chat. And thank you for your help as well. Good. Okay. Spot on. All right. Excellent. All right. And yeah, hope you're doing well, Narida. Anybody else popping in? I thought there'd be a few more excited faces for some Christmas carol with just, 7 days to go before Christmas. 6, depending where you are in the world. I'm a day ahead of some of you. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'll just get started, to be honest, because it is very late here, like I said. And if you miss the start, people dropping in later, then you can always rewind the stream. And I'm going to have the text on screen as well. Hopefully it's clear enough for you to see. It'll be a little bit smaller than what you can see up in the top corner there. Cheers, Carla, and thanks, Georgie. Yeah, always really appreciate the thumbs up. Even if you're watching this after the stream, really appreciate that. And always really appreciate comments as well, of course, not just in the live chat, but comments on the video afterwards is really appreciated. If there was anything that you particularly enjoyed, any feedback whatsoever, whether you're watching this live or you're watching a recorded version of the stream, let me know in the comments. That's really cool, because if you're someone that likes to chat whilst I'm here, you can just be preoccupied with my reading or whatever else you're doing, but once the stream's finished, if there's any particular highlights or anything else you want to say, do leave me a comment on the saved video as well. I really appreciate it. And like I've got up on the screen there, just trying something a little bit different. If you check the video description, hopefully, if anybody can confirm that as well, there should be my social media links for Patreon, and for those of you that are not supporting me on Patreon, or subscribe to me on Twitch, then of course it would be wonderful if you would like to support me there. Every little helps. It really does. This is a free channel, so support on Patreon is really fundamental. It's wonderful. And a lot of you over the last couple of years have donated to me on PayPal as well, which is absolutely incredible. So whatever's best for you. With Patreon, you do get a bunch of other perks as well, namely getting access to my downloadable audio libraries. So there's all sorts of stuff in there. Many audiobooks indeed. And with things being removed from YouTube and elsewhere due to copyright takedowns and stuff, as many of you know, there's a lot of exclusive series to those Patreon audio libraries as well. So if you would like any more information, please do just contact me. You can leave a comment. You can send me an email. You can chat to me on Discord. There's a bunch of ways to talk with me and ask me more if you're curious. And hello, Wicked Witch, Ashling. I hope you're doing good. You've got surgery in the morning. Goodness me. poorly, Fox fans all over the place. I hope you're doing okay. But yeah, really nice to hear that you're looking forward to watching this later. That's really really lovely. And I saw earlier you were saying that later can be better. You know, you've got a little bit more free time. But if you've got to head to bed, then that makes sense. And hello to S as well. Nice to see you. Thanks for saying hi. Uh, yeah. We've got a bit of Gustav Klimt in the background. It's, not exactly festive, but I don't know. It's angelic. And a little sprig of mistletoe, just to add a bit of Christmas cheer. We've only moved into this place, like I said, a few days ago, so we don't have any decorations up or anything yet. We won't actually be having Christmas here. So if we don't get decked up, it's not the end of the world. We will be having a Christmassy couple of days elsewhere. So we do have a couple of beautiful advent calendars, though. I splashed out on some luxury hotel chocolat advent calendars. So there's some Christmassy things going on. But all right, okay. Nice to see you, Ada. Another long time dedicated Fox fan. Nice to see you in the chat. That's really lovely. And patrons who are watching this, did you see my poll that I chucked up on Patreon yesterday? And oh, hi Teffy, nice to see you. Oh, but Teffy Pete, have you just changed your name? That's confusing. Or is this like some strange glitch? Because I can see the same pic for S and for Teffy, but I thought you were different people. I'm so confused. But yeah, if you haven't responded to my poll yet over on Patreon, please do. So I was asking not just for these coming live streams over the next few days, the next couple of weeks. I'm planning 5, hopefully, before Christmas. I know it's a bit of a tight squeeze. I wanted to start this a couple of weeks ago, and life has just got in the way. I'm sure many of you relate to that feeling. But I was asking, what time of the day is best for you to tune in to the Foxy Book Club, to my live streams? So yeah, please let me know. You can put a few different answers if you like, or you can be as specific as possible. It's just good to know. Like, I've always been aware of roughly when my peak viewership is, but it's really nice to know when is best for you guys, because not everybody tunes into the live streams. Some people prefer to just listen to the readings after I've finished. So there's a mixed bunch, a mixed kind of level of interest and all the rest of it. So yeah, exactly. You're just saying the very same thing, Ada. Yeah. But yeah, if you can fill in the poll over on Patreon, just take a couple of seconds. That would be great. Just helps me plan a little bit and see where the interest lies and everything. Okay. Oh yeah, I know you, Aisling. Don't worry, I'm more than familiar. Yeah, well, I hope it is an easy surgery. I hope it goes as smooth as possible. Fried toast. Fried bread. Yeah. Did I introduce you that? Did I introduce that to you, Brad? I remember chatting about full English breakfasts like about 18 months ago. Were you inspired and are still inspired by the revolution of fried bread? Because it's awesome. Yeah, you've mentioned that before, Logan, that you like it whilst you're working. So yeah, there's all different times of the day, depending where you're tuning in and how you like to enjoy a stream and all the rest of it. So thanks, Ada, and thanks to everybody that's filled in the poll. And I'm just going to leave that. There's no time limit on the poll, so you can fill that in whenever. So even if you hear this sometime in the future and you're a patron of mine, yeah, please let me know when it works for you. Well, yeah, just do your best, Georgie. Oh, you had it before, Brad. Okay, but yeah, just do your best. Just do your best, and yeah, you can always drop me a comment in the recorded video as well. Okay, so I'm gonna get started. Nearly 4 a.m. These chapters or staves, as they're called in A Christmas Carol, are pretty long, even though the book is quite short. And as many of you know, I have recorded the first two staves a very long time ago, approximately 2 years ago. They're on the Google Drive. They used to be on my old channels, plural, on the original Stephen Garnett channel and on redfoxvoice. They're not on this channel. I wanted just to start fresh at some point, but many of you will have heard me read the first two staves before, and as I remember, they were around an hour long each, maybe 45-50 minutes or so, and that was recorded, and live will probably be a little bit slower, I would imagine. So yeah, it might be a little bit too long for this one sitting. I really wanted to do it all in one sitting, but I didn't think it would be this late in the day for me. So let's I was just reading Ada's comment. Let's just see how it goes. Strange that you've got problems with Discord. It's so smooth on my phone, Georgie. But you know, lurkers always welcome. Yeah, fried bread. It's not the same as French toast. It's a little bit different. You can do some Googling. You basically just fry bread, you know. But yeah, French toast good too, definitely. Okay. Let's get started. Who's read A Christmas Carol before? And who is completely new to the story? Who has maybe seen one of the TV or film versions, or even a theatre production? Let me know. And fun fact, I was actually in a ballet production of A Christmas Carol when I was about 7 years old. 7, 8, something like that. And I say performed, it was a very small part, but performed with the Royal Northern Ballet, like one of the top British theatre, top ballet groups in the UK. So that was fun. It ran for about 2 weeks in the Lyceum Theatre in Sheffield, which is quite a big city up in the north of England. Mum and Dad were there, of course. And I was an orphan boy, or like a street urchin, that kind of thing. So yeah, rather surreal, really. You know, it's quite a big, very grand old theatre. I remember it being absolutely packed as well. I mean, A Christmas Carol is such a popular production, and in ballet form, yeah, pretty interesting. Yeah, so I think my mum and dad have still got some pictures of me like urchined up with grubby face and all the rest of it. Ah, you were a tiny Tim. Nice one, Brad. Before I get started, I just saw Georgia saying that you've baked 244 cookies. I can't even imagine that many cookies in one room. Never mind baking them all in one day. That is, that's temporarily blinded you. That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Yeah, I don't think there is a video of it. I don't know. I guess someone filmed it. I mean, it was open to the public, so there's like a few hundred people there every day for 2 weeks. So, but this was back in something like 1995. So yeah, who knows? If I can find a picture at the very least, I will upload it somewhere. Yeah, I always look rather urchinish. Like on a good day, I look very comfortable on the streets. I shouldn't even joke about these things. This is terrible, Brad. Hello, Drakia. How you doing? Finnish Buster. You're gonna have to help me out with that one. Oliver Twist, Tiny Tim. Yeah, there's similarities. Okay. Yeah, it's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful story. And hello, Mango. You commented on Patreon actually saying, are you going to give us any idea when you're going live? And I never did. It's just because I wasn't 100% sure whether I was going to be streaming today. And like I said about 3 times already, it's 4 a.m. here. So I was thinking, okay, if I do stream today, let's aim for about midnight my time. And, here we are. Here we are. No worries, Drakia. I normally mess up people's names, so it's just one of those things. My lucky day. Okay. Gonna get started. So I won't be able to see the chat whilst I'm reading. I'm gonna put this full screen for me, so you can talk about me behind my back. You can say nasty things. I won't even know. You can say lovely things. I won't know. But after the stream, I always try to skim back through and see what's been going on and everything. So I'll catch you troublemakers out if there's any trouble. Logan, you're not allowed to go to bed. If I'm reading A Christmas Carol in the middle of the night, it's 4 a.m, you can stay up. Come on, man. Come on. Represent the Fox fans. I'm full screening it. Cheers, Mango. I love all you too. I honestly do. I wouldn't be here otherwise. Like, not literally. I mean, I would still exist, but not in the same way. From the beginning, Georgie. From the beginning. It's the only way. It's the only way to do it. So, if you've listened to the first 2 staves, then here I go again. I'm sorry. It's shocking. Like, I mean, I've started Alice in Wonderland twice, and I've still not finished it. But I have to start again. It was a very rough reading, that one. It was literally one of the very, very, very first things I ever recorded. Recorded it on my laptop microphone before I got a temporary blue snowball, and then before I got this one. But the laptop microphone on my old laptop was still a lot better than my mobile phone microphone that I used to record The Hobbit and Fantastic Mr. Fox the first time round, and a couple of other things. So let's go. Glad there's some love for the blue shirt. It's a nice one. Looks a bit weird from this angle, I think. I think it looks nicer in person. It's got a nice profile. Slim profile. Ah, Logan. Okay, I'm full screening it. Yeah, let me know where you guys are hanging out as well. I know where a bunch of you are from. But yeah, where are you tuning in from? It's always nice to know. Okay, this is not a bad starting point. We're half an hour into the stream and I'm getting going. I can ramble for much longer than that, especially when I've not been streaming very often. Okay, so I'm full screening, and I'll just take a break when I need to, if I need to. But I'll try and at least read a decent chunk. So. Okay. This is a protein shaker, by the way, but it's just got water in it. Or is it vodka? You would never know. But I should have a nicer glass. It's not the prettiest thing to drink from when you're streaming. Okay. Well, thanks to all of you for being here. Thank you for tuning into the Foxy Book Club. And let's get started with the first of these somewhat belated Christmas streams, but better late than never. So, this is A Christmas Carol in Prose, being a ghost story of Christmas by Charles Dickens, better known simply as A Christmas Carol. Stave 1. Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know of my own knowledge what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat, emphatically, that Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary legatee, his sole friend, and sole mourner. And even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by the sad event, but that he was an excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral, and solemnized it with an undoubted bargain. The mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I started from. There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I'm going to relate. If we were not perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there would be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night in an easterly wind upon his own ramparts than there would be in any other middle-aged gentleman rashly turning out after dark in a breezy spot. Say St. Paul's churchyard, for instance, literally to astonish his son's weak mind. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterwards, above the warehouse door. Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge Scrooge, and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shrivelled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows and his wiry chin. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days, and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose. No pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain and snow and hail and sleet could boast of the advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master." But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked. To edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance, was what the knowing ones call nuts to Scrooge. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been light all day, and candles were flaring in the windows of the neighbouring offices, like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were mere phantoms. To see the dingy cloud come drooping down, obscuring everything, one might have thought that nature lived hard by, and was brewing on a large scale. The door of Scrooge's counting-house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room, and so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter, and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of a strong imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked again. "Christmas? A humbug, Uncle?" said Scrooge's nephew. "You don't mean that, I am sure." "I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas! What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then," returned the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough." Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said, "Bah!" again, and followed it up with, "Humbug." "Don't be cross, Uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be?" returned the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas! Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money, a time for finding yourself a year older, but not an hour richer, a time for balancing your books and having every item in 'em through a round dozen of months presented dead against you? If I could work my will," said Scrooge indignantly, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding, and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should." "Uncle," pleaded the nephew. "Nephew," returned the uncle sternly, "keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine." "Keep it?" repeated Scrooge's nephew. "But you don't keep it." "Let me leave it alone, then," said Scrooge. "Much good may it do you, much good it has ever done you." "There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say," returned the nephew. "Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it has come round, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name and origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and will do me good, and I say God bless it." The clerk in the tank involuntarily applauded. Becoming immediately sensible of the impropriety, he poked the fire, and extinguished the last frail spark forever. "Let me hear another sound from you," said Scrooge, "and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation." "You're quite a powerful speaker, sir," he added, turning to his nephew. "I wonder you don't go into Parliament." "Don't be angry, uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow." Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed he did. He went the whole length of the expression, and said that he would see him in that extremity first. "But why?" cried Scrooge's nephew. "Why?" "Why did you get married?" said Scrooge. "Because I fell in love." "Because you fell in love?" growled Scrooge, as if that were the only one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. "Good afternoon." "Nay, uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it as a reason for not coming now?" "I want nothing from you. I ask nothing from you." "Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped a bit there. My apologies." "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. "I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?" "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. "I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel, to which I have been a party. But I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humour to the last. So a Merry Christmas, uncle." "Good afternoon," said Scrooge, "and a Happy New Year." "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. His nephew left the room without an angry word, notwithstanding. He stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially. "There's another fellow," muttered Scrooge, who overheard him. "My clerk, with 15 shillings a week and a wife and family, talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam." This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands, and bowed to him. "Scrooge and Marley's, I believe," said one of the gentlemen, referring to his list. "Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?" "Mr. Marley's been dead these 7 years," Scrooge replied. "He died 7 years ago this very night." "We have no doubt his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner," said the gentleman, presenting his credentials. It certainly was, for they had been 2 kindred spirits. At the ominous word liberality, Scrooge frowned and shook his head, and handed the credentials back. "At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge," said the gentleman, taking up a pen, "it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir." "Are there no prisons?" asked Scrooge. "Plenty of prisons," said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. "And the union workhouses?" demanded Scrooge. "Are they still in operation?" "They are, still," returned the gentleman. "I wish I could say they were not." "The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigour, then?" said Scrooge. "Both very busy, sir." "Oh, I was afraid, from what you said at first, that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course," said Scrooge. "I'm very glad to hear it." "Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitude," returned the gentleman, "a few of us are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink, and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?" "Nothing," Scrooge replied. "You wish to be anonymous?" "I wish to be left alone," said Scrooge. "Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there." "Many can't go there, and many would rather die." "If they would rather die," said Scrooge, "they had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that." "But you might know it," observed the gentleman. "It's not my business," Scrooge returned. "It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen." Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labours with an improved opinion of himself, and in a more facetious temper than was usual with him. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened so that people ran about with flaring links, proffering their services to go before horses and carriages and conduct them on their way. The ancient tower of a church, whose gruff old bell was always peeping slyly down at Scrooge out of a Gothic window in the wall, became invisible, and struck the hours and quarters in the clouds with tremulous vibrations afterwards, as if its teeth were chattering in its frozen head up there. The cold became intense. The main street, at the corner of the court, some labourers were repairing the gas pipes, and had lighted a great fire in a brazier, round which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands and winking their eyes before the blaze in rapture. The water plug being left in solitude, its overflowing sullenly congealed and turned to misanthropic ice. The brightness of the shops, where holly sprigs and berries crackled in the lamp heat of the windows, made pale faces ruddy as they passed. Poulterers' and grocers' trades became a splendid joke, a glorious pageant, with which it was next to impossible to believe that such dull principles as bargain and sale had anything to do. The Lord Mayor, in the stronghold of the mighty mansion house, gave orders to his 50 cooks and butlers to keep Christmas as a Lord Mayor's household should, and even the little tailor, whom he had fined 5 shillings on the previous Monday for being drunk and bloodthirsty in the streets, stirred up tomorrow's pudding in his garret, while his lean wife and the baby sallied out to buy the beef. Foggier yet, and colder. Piercing, searching, biting cold. If the good Saint Dunstan had but nipped the evil spirit's nose with a touch of such weather as that, instead of using his familiar weapons, then indeed he would have roared to lusty purpose. The owner of one scant young nose, gnawed and mumbled by the hungry cold as bones are gnawed by dogs, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale himself with a Christmas carol. But at the first sound of "God bless you, merry gentlemen, may nothing you dismay," Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy of action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog and even more congenial frost. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting-house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat. "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose," said Scrooge. "If quite convenient, sir." "It's not convenient," said Scrooge, "and it's not fair. If I was to stop £0.50 for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound." The clerk smiled faintly. "And yet," said Scrooge, "you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day wages for no work." The clerk observed that it was only once a year. "A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December," said Scrooge, buttoning his great coat to the chin. "But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning." The clerk promised that he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no great coat, went down a slide on Cornhill, at the end of a lane of boys, 20 times, in honour of its being Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt, to play at Blind Man's Buff. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms, in a lowering pile of building up a yard, where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide-and-seek with other houses, and forgotten the way out again. It was old enough now, and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms being all let out as offices. The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, was fain to grope with his hands. The fog and frost so hung about the black old gateway of the house that it seemed as if the genius of the weather sat in mournful meditation on the threshold. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had seen it night and morning during his whole residence in that place. Also that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as any man in the city of London, even including, which is a bold word, the corporation, aldermen, and livery. Let it also be borne in mind that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought on Marley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon. And then let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face. It was not in impenetrable shadow, as the other objects in the yard were, but had a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up on its ghostly forehead. The hair was curiously stirred, as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. That, and its livid colour, made it horrible, but its horror seemed to be in spite of the face and beyond its control, rather than a part of its own expression. As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. To say that he was not startled, or that his blood was not conscious of a terrible sensation to which it had been a stranger from infancy, would be untrue. But he put his hand upon the key he had relinquished, turned it sturdily, walked in, and lighted his candle. He did pause, with a moment's irresolution, before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it first, as if he half expected to be terrified with the sight of Marley's pigtail sticking out into the hall. But there was nothing on the back of the door except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on. So he said, "Pooh, pooh," and closed it with a bang. The sound resounded through the house like thunder. Every room above and every cask in the wine merchant's cellars below appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs, slowly too, trimming his candle as he went. You may talk vaguely about driving a coach and six up a good old flight of stairs, or through a bad young Act of Parliament, but I mean to say, you might have got a hearse up that staircase and taken it broadwise, for the splinter bar towards the wall and the door towards the balustrades, and done it easy. There was plenty of width for that, and room to spare, which is perhaps the reason why Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive hearse going on before him in the gloom. 6 gas lamps out of the street wouldn't have lighted the entry too well, so you may suppose that it was pretty dark with Scrooge's dip. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for that. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa, a small fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready, and the little saucepan of gruel, Scrooge had a cold in his head, upon the hob. Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in his dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Lumber room, as usual. Old fire guard, old shoes, 2 fish baskets, washing stand on 3 legs, and a poker. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. It was a very low fire indeed, nothing on such a bitter night. He was obliged to sit close to it, and brood over it, before he could extract the least sensation of warmth from such a handful of fuel. The fireplace was an old one, built by some Dutch merchant long ago, and paved all round with quaint Dutch tiles, designed to illustrate the scriptures. There were Cains and Abels, Pharaoh's daughters, queens of Sheba, angelic messengers descending through the air on clouds like feather beds, Abraham's, Belshazzar's, apostles putting off to sea in butterboats, hundreds of figures to attract his thoughts, and yet that face of Marley, 7 years dead, came like the ancient prophet's rod and swallowed up the whole. If each smooth tile had been a blank at first, with power to shape some picture on its surface from the disjointed fragments of his thoughts, there would have been a copy of old Marley's head on every one. "Humbug," said Scrooge, and walked across the room. After several turns, he sat down again. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell, that hung in the room, and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment, and with a strange, inexplicable dread, that as he looked he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This might have lasted half a minute or a minute, but it seemed an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below. Then coming up the stairs. Then coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." His colour changed, though, when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door, and passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up, as though it cried, "I know him, Marley's ghost!" and fell again. The same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights, and boots, the tassels on the latter bristling, like his pigtail and his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long, and wound about him like a tail. And it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now, though he looked the phantom through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, which wrapper he had not observed before. He was still incredulous, and fought against his senses. "How now?" said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. "What do you want with me?" "Much." Marley's voice, no doubt about it. "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?" said Scrooge, raising his voice. "You're particular for a shade." He was going to say, "to a shade," but substituted this as more appropriate. "In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley." Can you sit down?" asked Scrooge, looking doubtfully at him. "I can." "Do it, then." Scrooge asked the question, because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of its being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it. "You don't believe in me?" observed the ghost. "I don't," said Scrooge. "What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses?" "I don't know," said Scrooge. "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because," said Scrooge, "a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of a underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the spectre's voice disturbed the very marrow in his bones. To sit staring at those fixed glazed eyes in silence for a moment would play, Scrooge felt, the very deuce with him. There was something very awful, too, in the spectre's being provided with an infernal atmosphere of its own. Scrooge could not feel it himself, but this was clearly the case, for though the ghost sat perfectly motionless, its hair and skirts and tassels were still agitated as by the hot vapour from an oven. "You see this toothpick?" said Scrooge, returning quickly to the charge, for the reason just assigned, and wishing, though it were only for a second, to divert the vision's stony gaze from himself. "I do," replied the ghost. "You are not looking at it," said Scrooge. "But I see it," said the ghost, notwithstanding. "Well," returned Scrooge, "I have but to swallow this, and be for the rest of my days persecuted by a legion of goblins, all of my own creation. Humbug, I tell you, humbug." At this, the spirit raised a frightful cry, and shook its chain with such a dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge held on tight to his chair to save himself from falling in a swoon. But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage round its head, as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped down upon its breast. Scrooge fell upon his knees and clasped his hands before his face. "Mercy!" he said. "Dreadful apparition! Why do you trouble me?" "Man of the worldly mind," replied the ghost, "do you believe in me or not?" "I do," said Scrooge. "I must. But why do spirits walk the earth? Why do they come to me?" "It is required of every man," the ghost returned, "that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me! And witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth, and turned to happiness." Again the spectre raised a cry, and shook its chain, and wrung its shadowy hands. "You are fettered," said Scrooge, trembling. "Tell me why." "I wear the chain I forged in life," replied the ghost. "I made it, link by link, and yard by yard. I girded it on my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you?" Scrooge trembled more and more. "Or would you know," pursued the ghost, "the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have laboured on it since. It is a ponderous chain." Scrooge glanced about him on the floor in the expectation of finding himself surrounded by some 50 or 60 fathoms of iron cable, but he could see nothing. "Jacob!" he said imploringly. "Old Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob." "I have none to give," the ghost replied. "It comes from other regions, Ebenezer Scrooge, and is conveyed by other ministers to other kinds of men. Nor can I tell you what I would. A very little more is all permitted to me. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hall, and weary journeys lie before me." It was a habit with Scrooge, whenever he became thoughtful, to put his hands in his breeches pockets. Pondering on what the ghost had said, he did so now, but without lifting up his eyes or getting off his knees. "You must have been very slow about it, Jacob," Scrooge observed in a business-like manner, though with humility and deference. "Slow?" the ghost repeated. "7 years dead," mused Scrooge, "and travelling all the time." "The whole time," said the ghost. "No rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse." "You travel fast," said Scrooge. "On the wings of the wind," replied the ghost. "You might have got over a great quantity of ground in 7 years," said Scrooge. The ghost, on hearing this, set up another cry, and clanked its chain so hideously in the dead silence of the night, that the ward would have been justified in indicating it for a nuisance. "Oh, captive bound and double ironed," cried the phantom, "not to know that ages of incessant labour by immortal creatures, for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is susceptible is all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I." "But you were always a good man of business, Jacob," faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. "Business!" cried the ghost, wringing its hands again. "Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business." It held up its chain at arm's length, as if that were the cause of all its unavailing grief, and flung it heavily upon the ground again. "At this time of the rolling year," the spectre said, "I suffer most. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down, and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode? Were there no poor homes to which its light would have conducted me?" Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly. "Hear me!" cried the ghost. "My time is nearly gone." "I will," said Scrooge. "But don't be hard upon me. Don't be flowery, Jacob, pray." "How it is that I appear before you in a shape that you can see, I may not tell. I have sat invisible beside you many and many a day." It was not an agreeable idea. Scrooge shivered, and wiped the perspiration from his brow. "That is no light part of my penance," pursued the ghost. "I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate, a chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer. You were always a good friend to me, said Scrooge. Thank ye. You will be haunted, resumed the ghost, by 3 spirits. Scrooge's countenance fell almost as low as the ghost, said Dunn. Is that the chance you... and hope you mentioned, Jacob? He demanded, in a faltering voice. It is. I think I'd rather not, said Scrooge. Without their visits, said the ghost, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls 1. Couldn't I take 'em all at once and have it over, Jacob? Hinted Scrooge. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us. When it had said these words, the spectre took its wrapper from the table and bound it round its head as before. Scrooge knew this by the smart sound its teeth made when the jaws were brought together by the bandage. He ventured to raise his eyes again, and found his supernatural visitor confronting him in an erect attitude, with its chain wound over and about its arm. The apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which he did. When they were within 2 paces of each other, Marley's ghost held up its hand, warning him to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped, not so much in obedience as in surprise and fear, for on the raising of the hand he became sensible of confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailings inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge and floated out upon the bleak, dark night. Scrooge followed to the window, desperate in his curiosity. He looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in the restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost in a white waistcoat, with a monstrous iron safe attached to its ankle, who cried piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant whom it saw below, upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was clearly that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost the power forever. Whether these creatures faded into mist, or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell. But they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window, and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say, "Humbug," but stopped at the first syllable. And being, from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant. Thank you very much for listening to Stave 1 of Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol, as part of hopefully 5 Christmas live streams. Like I said at the start of the stream, I did want to start this a little bit earlier. I would have loved to have read this first one maybe on the 1st of December or something like that, and dropped a chapter in every few days. But it's been a very strange couple of months. Very stressful in many ways, positive in some ways too, but life got in the way, and we've had the first chapter, the first complete stave, read live tonight instead. So it's now 5 a.m. here in Stockholm. So I will be going to bed very, very, very shortly. But, of course, I really thoroughly, as always, hope you enjoyed that reading of mine, that live reading. And I'm sure I don't need to make this disclaimer, but I apologize for the mistakes here and there. I bumbled a couple of words, got mixed up on the lines maybe once or twice, and mispronounced a few words that, like, the second I say it out loud, I hear it, but it's too late. There's no point correcting every time. I just want to get as smooth a flow as possible. So sometimes I correct if it just kind of comes naturally, but if I mispronounce something in the heat of the moment, 9 times out of 10, I just let it pass and keep the flow. But once I've finished A Christmas Carol over these live streams, so there'll be, like I said, there should be 5 readings over 5 streams is the plan. I will, as I've not done with the last couple of streams actually, I will definitely, if I can get a completed Christmas Carol audiobook read live, I will extract the readings from these live streams and perhaps re-record, if it works, re-record over any of those mistakes, just so at least there's no mistakes in the reading. But I don't think I will re-record anything else. If there was one particular thing that I feel like, I could have done that better, even despite the live element, like there was one line in that chapter that I read correctly, but I didn't just quite put the intonation in the right place, and then as soon as I read it, I remembered from when I'd read this 18 months ago, and when I've pre-read this a little bit earlier, I was like, the intonation, like, the emphasis should have been here in the sentence and not here in the sentence. But Um, yeah. So anyway, I really hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I did. I pushed through the whole chapter. I think it was about an hour altogether, wasn't it? Which is longer than I ever comfortably read in one go. So I have done that in live streams a couple of times in the past, with Sherlock Holmes and a couple of other examples, perhaps. But when I'm doing my regular recorded readings, I can stop and pause whenever I want. I often do go through a whole chapter in one go, but that it's not constant talking like that. I can reread one section 10 times if I want, or whatever, and I always know that I can just pause for a second and take a breath and stretch my legs and come back to it and whatever. As with a live reading, if I want to deliver things as smoothly as possible, then I need to just push through. And I can split it into two halves, and hopefully deliver two smooth halves. But I just think, to really try and capture the essence of a chapter, it's best delivered all in one go if you can do it. Maybe I'll leave the mistakes, Brad. I could always leave one kind of raw and one edited slightly. That could work. Thanks, Teresa. I will go to bed in just a minute. Let me just skim back through the chat. Oh, I've just realised this has made me very sad to realise. But there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, I'm so sorry. You must have been wondering why I've had this empty space. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Oh, that's such a shame. I will fix this for the next stream, I hope. There should be a text box up in the top right hand corner. That's why there is that space there. And it was not active. And it's still not displaying now, is it? Still not displaying now. That is really strange. Why is the chat not displaying? But yeah, that empty black void up in the top right hand corner was supposed to be the chat box. But it's I didn't even notice in the beginning. I was so focused on welcoming people, and you like watching yourself on the stream there and making sure it looks okay, and that the book's on screen. That the chat box didn't work. But it's so strange. Because I've got the chat up on my screen, you see, but you can't see it. Oh, that's such a shame. Sorry about that. Because for people that watch the video back, you're just seeing a little scroll. Teresa, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, for people watching the video back, they can have that live chat there if they want it. But I love to have the video saved with the chat, as it's all part of the Foxy Book Club, and that can no longer be the case with this one, unfortunately. Yeah, I know you can chat. I know you can chat, but I like to have it up on the screen, so there's this black space above my face. And I'd purposely arranged this layout so that it was book um, and like logos, etc., my face, and then the little black space up at the top was supposed to be the chuffing text box, the chat box, and it's not there. It's not there. So yeah, that makes me a bit sad. And now that even though I've uncovered it because it was buried beneath something else, it's still not working. Strange. Maybe it would need the stream restarting or something to activate it. Very strange. Very strange. Chuffing, yeah, it's a Yorkshire word. It's like a soft swear word. Yeah, annoying with the. Even says I'm offline here on YouTube. That is strange. Anyway, you see it there. Sorry for the ridiculous question. But this is going through YouTube, right? It didn't pop in through Twitch because that would explain why the text box isn't working. But this is through YouTube, isn't it? It must be with you saying that as well. Super chat. I just saw you mention, Teresa. I did say on Discord straight after it happened that it could just be to do with all the changes with YouTube or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. But they revoked the monetization. It's not English for if it's just it's like saying yeah, it's like saying bloody hell or something like that. Chuffing. Yeah, Dickon would definitely say chuff. Oh, chuff. But yeah, they revoked the monetization. Like, it's YouTube is a silly place, especially when it comes to monetization these days, as many of you know. So that's why I still have all over the place. Like, this is a free channel, and sorry, my hair's annoying me. Yeah, so the adverts that run on Lord of the Rings, I think they might have popped up on The Complete Narnia as well. They just go to the musicians, like, so they go to third party. The revenue goes to a third party. It doesn't go to me. So the channel for me is absolutely unsponsored. So I can't super chat. I can't have memberships. I can't link people to external sites, like with cards popping up in the top. Like, I spent about an hour or more adding the Patreon link to every single video on my channel so that it can like pop up and say, I used to have it on my old channel when that was monetized and back in the day. So it can pop up like saying, kind of like, want to support the channel, or are you enjoying my reading? And it can link you to Patreon, but I can't add that either, because these are all perks of having your channel verified and accepted for monetization. So whether you want to monetize your channel or not, you can't do those things without that verification. So, yeah, very frustrating. You know, they send you an automatic robot message saying, "Congratulations, you've been accepted for monetization. You're a part of the partner program. Whoop 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 whoop," and all this. And 7 days later, another robot message, like just an automated message. We are very sorry, but on further investigation, we have decided that your channel is not acceptable, or whatever, and there's no reason. There is no reason given. Like they say something like incredibly generic, like they used to say something like duplication, and they've changed the term. I can't just think what it is, but it's basically suggesting that I've got like stolen content or copied content or repeated content on my channel, which I obviously don't. So, but like I was worried about that before because they declined me for monetization when I'd applied the month previous. You have to wait a month before you can reapply if you're rejected, and they gave that reason. And the only thing that I could identify, obviously I don't have any copyright strikes and things like that. The only thing I could identify was that I'd saved Twitch streams on YouTube, because it says like don't have videos from other sites basically on your channel, even though people do that. So I deleted those, applied for verification again, and I really didn't want to delete those, with some live reading of Lord of the Rings, and deleted those, reapplied, got accepted. I was like, oh, right, okay, so maybe there was some manual review, like some human had looked at it for a change or something, however it's detected, and they'd seen that was no longer a problem, so they've verified my channel. Fantastic. But then a few days later, they then unverified the channel. So no idea. So it was very upsetting, that, to be honest. But especially as there was some wasted time and effort as well, applying monetization and adding those links and various other things. So yeah. Yeah. So I'm just not worrying about that. So I'm just taking it that this channel will not be verified, and that's just how it is. Maybe, even though there are verified audiobook channels out there, I'm pretty sure I can think of a couple. They're really cracking down on all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of very unhappy users and creators and stuff, and I just think, okay, that's fine. I won't fight it. I'll just use this platform to distribute my content, and hopefully, those of you that enjoy my content are willing to, give a little bit back, as this is all free, of course, and donate a little bit here and there, or support me on Patreon, or whatever. So, but I really, 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 really hope you enjoyed this stream. I didn't see you pop in, Teresa, so I hope you've had a nice time. And I was just seeing who else was here as well. There's Tess, and I don't think I recognize you, Tess. So very, very welcome to you, and thank you for the praise. I saw a few people saying that you'd enjoyed the reading and everything. I was pretty pleased with it. Like, for a live reading, I was pretty pleased with it, especially at 4 or 5 in the morning. And hello to With Love Pixie as well. You are very late, I'm afraid. You must have joined about at the hour and a half mark or something, so I think I'd already finished by the time you'd finished the reading at least. And hello to Ross, and thanks for the thumbs up. And please do thumbs up the stream, the recorded video as well. I really appreciate it. You were saying, can I pay you to finish Harry Potter? I mean, those publishers were trying to crush me for my unofficial readings. So, I mean, you can join me on Patreon, Ross, if you're not already there. I'm ever so sorry if you are a patron of mine and I'm just not recognizing your name. It's a little bit tricky to remember everyone. Although I try my best. But yeah, whether I will get back to Harry Potter at some point or not, I honestly cannot say. I would absolutely love to, of course. Like, as you know, and I've said many times, it was an absolute pleasure reading Harry Potter for you all, and going from being completely unknown and just having a few followers subscribed and listening to my original Hobbit recording, and I did those couple of staves of A Christmas Carol, and I did the first few chapters of Pride and Prejudice, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also, all on my original Stephen Garnett channel, with all the basic equipment, a couple of years ago. And then once I started just super casually reading Harry Potter and just recording it onto my laptop with the laptop microphone, like I said at the start of the stream, no clue what I was doing in terms of editing and all the rest of it. And, the views started rolling in, which maybe you expect a little bit because Harry Potter attracts attention, but, there's so much Harry Potter stuff out there. And then to actually be receiving all the praise that I received over that next, 18 months or so was just absolutely mind-blowing. And all the support and donations and all the rest of it, through Patreon and PayPal and everything was just, absolutely amazing. So, I miss reading Harry Potter very much. I really, really do. Patrons of mine can access my audio libraries, and you can download all the individual chapters. You can download the complete audiobooks with the music and everything. So, you've got Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Prison of Azkaban, and the first 10 or 11 with the live reading, 11 chapters of Goblet of Fire. But that was where I had to finally pause, sadly. But it's a wonderful series and very fun to narrate, and such great practice for me. I think it's pretty much an ideal book to learn with, so even though I'd already done The Hobbit in that very, very raw way, and The Guest Cat and Fantastic Mr. Fox, all complete, finishing Philosopher's Stone, that felt like such an achievement, and I was very, very pleased with it. Even though it was much more basic than later readings and everything. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna head to bed at last. Thanks for I'm just skimming through the chat. I'm just rewinding the chat a little bit. Really appreciate the praise. I'll definitely it's so nice to read this. I'll definitely go back through the whole stream. I want to hear the reading for myself as well. I didn't actually listen back to the last To Marry a Prince chapter. I should do that. But I'll definitely watch this back through and keep up with your chat and everything. You're talking about The Hobbit and all sorts of stuff. That's very nice. Lovely to see you chatting together. The Fox fans are a truly special bunch. And yeah, Mango just mentioning Lord of the Rings there. I know I've been saying this for a while, but Lord of the Rings is absolutely, definitely coming soon. It's like next on my list because I was wanting to squeeze it in earlier. I did a couple of those live readings of it on Twitch and everything, but then because I'd got out of the habit of doing the recorded readings, I'd had a turbulent time earlier on in the year and moving house. Then I know I've just said I've moved house again now, but things were turbulent. I got out of the habit. I didn't have anywhere just kind of like comfortable and steady to record, so I did those live streams, which was wonderful. But Narnia, that had been put on hold, felt like an easier route back into the reading and everything. It's a lot easier to narrate than Lord of the Rings. It's still challenging, but it's a lot easier than Lord of the Rings. So Lord of the Rings got pushed back. I wanted to at least finish another audiobook, so I got Narnia finished. We started Dracula for Halloween, and I just wanted something fresh. Really been enjoying that, and I know a lot of you have been really enjoying that as well. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. So back to Dracula and back to the Lord of the Rings. That's like bum. And then with the live streams, obviously I'm going to be reading A Christmas Carol over the next week or two, and if I can drop in some Tamaria Prince here and there, and there's other stuff, of course. I still want to finish Alice in Wonderland, and yeah, there's other things. Okay. I'm just reading the chat again. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're very, 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 very welcome to. A bunch of you have said here and there, like, whether you can write to the publishers about Harry Potter and all this kind of thing. And, I've said you're more than welcome. Like, we can try and figure something out. I really, really, really appreciate the sentiment. It's fantastic. Like, Tess is saying, yeah, they probably won't care. And no, they probably won't. I mean, you never know. People were saying, oh, can we get in touch with Rowling herself and all these kind of things. But yeah, conversation for another day. I would absolutely love to get over to the States and Canada and elsewhere sometime. Should do a world tour. I tell you what, like if I'd got infinite bags of cash, I would. And one of my best friends back home, who came to visit me in Stockholm a couple of months ago, he's actually considering moving to Canada. And he had earlier been talking about maybe moving to Stockholm. But if he moves to Canada, I've still got itchy feet to travel and see more of the world and everything. And so does. Look, this is a nice place to drop it. Yeah, there's only a small bunch of you here at the moment, but although I've honestly not got into any details apart from moving house, but I've had a very difficult last couple of months. Like I had a tough start to the year. There's always bits and pieces, but the last couple of months have been very difficult just in my personal life again. Various things. I won't go into details, but one of I guess a couple of bits of good news. One, I managed to get this new apartment with my girlfriend because I won't go into all the blah blah now, but the housing situation in Stockholm is real bad. Especially if you don't have the money to buy. If you can only rent, it's really, really, really bad. But I've got this apartment, and it's a very nice apartment. It's way too expensive, but it's a nice place. And the second bit of news is I'm living with my girlfriend here. We were living together in the old place, and she is no longer my girlfriend. Which it sounds like a problem. Living together, she's no longer your girlfriend. Sounds complicated. But she is now my fiance. So we are now engaged. Very public to announce it here, There's only a small bunch of you. I wonder how many people will notice this if they finish the reading and actually go on to hear me announce this here. But yeah, I proposed to her a few weeks ago, and of course she said yes. I mean, of course. If only to bring these two closer to the family and everything. So yeah, it was a very, 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 very special moment. Like it was a total surprise. She didn't have a clue. I just called her mum to have a chat about things and kind of like unofficially ask for her blessing without using such words, but I really wanted to respect that. And we have a very beautiful ring, which was custom designed by a beautiful private jeweler in Stockholm. His name's Hanno. If you ever want some bespoke, handmade, high quality, beautiful jewelry and you're in Stockholm, you can order online as well for special moments and with the best service you can imagine. It's just it's just a one-man show. He designs everything himself, he creates everything himself. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. So he helped me design this piece and shipped in a ethical, much more kind of environmentally friendly, clean, certified, what they call salt and pepper diamond. If you're not familiar with them, you can check them out. But I think they're really, really, really beautiful, and there's various reasons why I chose that stone. But it was such a wonderful experience. Planning that and kind of designing things with Hanno, and then actually having that incredible like unique moment with my now fiance. So, and thanks for the congratulations, everybody. It's wonderful, and like I said, things have been quite tough recently. So yeah, there's obviously many reasons you ask someone to marry you, but there was a real sentiment there of like focusing on that joy and happiness that we have together. So yeah, soon to be Mrs. Fox. Yeah, I might go into more details about the proposal later. You've had enough. You've had enough of a taster now. Yeah, you can I would love you to see The Ring. The Precious. I have been calling it The Precious here and there. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. The Precious. She loves it. She needs it. She wants it. Yeah, yeah. It's really pretty. It's really pretty. And honestly, I'm not gonna promise anything, but I would absolutely love for her to join me on the stream sometime, so you can meet her for yourself. She, in my opinion, and the opinion of many people, she's a rather talented musician, among other things. And she doesn't play anywhere near as much these days as she used to, so she's quite shy about it, but she's really, really, really wanting to get back into music and other creative art forms and stuff like that. And I've been saying since we met, I've been saying, like, honestly, like, come on to the stream with me sometimes. Like, you know, like, it's not that scary, you know. And I was saying to her again just the other day, like, you could, like, play a song or whatever, you know, like, in between readings, and just, like, you know, sit with me whilst I'm streaming, and we can chat a little bit, and, you know, and I've really been wanting her to like have a go at voice acting little bits here and there, and we had a practice a little while ago, but I thought you would I thought you'd find that kind of fun, and it would be a cool way for her to kind of like stretch her wings or whatever, and get like a little bit of practice. And you know, she's not performed on stage for a long time. Like, she's been in various bands and orchestras and blah blah blah, performed in different places and stuff, but she's not been on stage for quite a long time. So she's been talking about, a long time ago, she was talking about going to an open mic night, and yeah, just getting started again. And I just thought, well, this could be a very low pressure stage, you know, and fun for all the Fox family, you know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, hello, Shannon. You dropped in very, very late. Yeah, don't turn notifications off. No. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you on Discord earlier. You said, like, oh, is there a time for the stream, and I was like busy earlier, and I was like, okay, I'll get back to that later when I know, and I never did know a time, and I was hoping, like I said at the start, I was hoping for midnight, and then it was 4 a.m, so, you know. Okay. Yeah, I know you love the romance. Oh, I thought that was Teresa. It's Tess. But Tess isn't Teresa. I'm getting confused. You've not changed your name, have you, Teresa? Have you changed your name? You've changed your name. Or is that just on my screen? Tess T. Dot. How am I supposed to keep up with this? I've already said it's hard enough keeping up with different names. Okay. Yeah. Yes. You did miss the reading, Shannon. Okay, but don't you worry. Please watch the stream back. Please remember those thumbs up. Keep sharing the channel. Tell your friends. Tell people who are not even your friends. I don't mind. They might become your friend after a recommendation this good. Changed your name. My lord. Yeah, I know. You are. You are indeed, Brad. Extremely rambunctious. And also friendly. Oh, this is Georgie. Okay. Okay. Logan's going to bed. I'm going to bed. It's 5:30 in the morning. Goodness me, I'm going to be having a good sleep, I hope. Okay, thanks so much for joining. It's been wonderful. Really hope you've enjoyed this live reading of A Christmas Carol, and I will try and get back within the next couple of days for Stave 2. All right. I figured it. Teresa. Okay. Good night. Take care. Good luck to everybody. I hope you're doing as well as you can. So sorry to hear some of you are not doing too super at the moment, but all the best to you. Logan's in there with Listen to You Soon. You always know what's coming. Thanks so much for joining. And read to you soon.